There's Janet.
Yes. Yes. So Chris West, I have a link to share with you. If you want to share this with your people, that's the YouTube link at the moment. I know I've given you several.
That's a good idea. That's great, Amy.
Yes. It's nice to see faces. I saw Martin. There he is. Hi, Marty. I see you in person.
Yeah, there you are. Nice to meet you. Nice gallery.
Thank you. This is all the artwork that we'll be looking at this evening and hearing some poetry from.
Hi, Ellen. There's Ellen.
Yes. EJ and Joy. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Janet.
Janet. Hi.
Kate. And Nancy.
Yeah.
Trisha. What fun. And new people, Roger and Kristen. Nice to see you all. I live on a very loud street, so you're probably hearing a very loud motorcycle right now. Yes, we're streaming on the YouTubes. So they're seeing us all right now. You can unmute yourselves and talk for a moment. I think we have 19 of us here. I'll give it one more minute and then
Sure.
See if we get a couple more folks before we get started. I think I'll just go over some tech specs. Hopefully, after more than a year of Zoom events, we kind of know how these things work by now, but probably once we get going, speaker view will be your best option because we're going to pin some folks to the, or spotlight some folks, and we're going to do a Q&A towards the end. So if you have questions, you can just drop them in the chat, and Susan Greenstein will corral those for later in the evening. And I think that's all I have. It's probably best to keep muted during the event in case there's weird feedback. And I'm really excited, a little nervous. I haven't hosted an event for quite a while. It's certainly not my own. I feel a little rusty.
Well, it's like riding a
falling off a bike.
There you go.
Yeah, falling off a bike, exactly.
And what a nice event to have to
It's true.
do this for. I mean,
Yeah.
this is perfect.
Wonderful event.
Well, it's such a loving, supportive community, so there's no reason to be nervous.
Amy, your sense memory is really good. Okay, you'll be in a second, like all back to the podium and stuff. Don't even think.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you're an old pro.
Aw. Thank you, Janet. And all of the others giving nice comments. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. Welcome to unofficially the 440 Gallery, who is hosting this event. And for those of you that don't know, my name is Amy Williams, and I'm the director of 440 Gallery. And 440 Gallery was started in 2005 by Nancy Lunsford and Shani Epstein. And it is some miracle that we are still here after 15 plus years. We are an artist collective, artist-run space in the heart of Park Slope, Brooklyn. And now that the CDC has passed some new guidelines, and I'm hopeful that we'll have live in-person events in the near future. And so I'd like to start us off by doing something a little bit different tonight, and I'm going to do what is known as a land acknowledgement. And in this spirit of making erased histories visible, we begin today by acknowledging that we are gathered in Lenape-Hoking, the stolen land of the Canarsie, a Brooklyn tribe of the Munsee Lenape, part of the Delaware Nation. The Lenape have stewarded this land for generations, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and future. We are grateful to the indigenous caretakers of this land who continue to thrive today. Brooklyn owes its vitality to previous generations. Some were brought forcibly to this land, others came in search of a better life, and many have lived and stewarded this land for countless generations. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us together today. Additionally, in the spirit of reconciliation, you can honor the indigenous peoples of this land by donating to the Lenape Center or to the Mannahatta Fund. And thank you for that. I have so many things open. I have to find all my files. So I will start by introducing my esteemed colleagues who really made this book possible. And I really keep the best company. First, I'll introduce Robert Gibbons, my collaborator. Robert is a native Floridian who came to New York City in 2007 in search of his muse, Langston Hughes, and found a vibrant contemporary poetry community. His first book, Close to the Tree, was published by the New York-based Three Rims Press in 2012. Robert has been published in over 30 literary magazines and in several notable anthologies. Recent publication credits include Flight, Expound, and Turtle Island. Robert lives in Brooklyn and continues to be active in the New York City poetry scene. And Robert wrote all of the poetry, and we'll give a reading in a few short minutes. Joanne Mcfarland, who wrote the amazing introductory essay for us. I was really couldn't believe that she was able to articulate this project so beautifully. Joanne is an artist, poet, and curator. She is the artistic director of Art Poetica Project Space in Gowanus, Brooklyn, which focuses on work that is both literary and highly visual. Mcfarland has exhibited widely, both nationally and internationally, for more than 30 years. Her artwork is in the permanent collections of the Library of Congress, the Columbus Museum of Art, the Department of State, among many others. She is the author of 18 poetry books and libretti, including a recent series of innovative digital bookworks. In her work, Mcfarland treats violence and creativity as diametrically opposed. Each act of making thwarts violence's aim to destroy. And last but not least, John Gagne, who is the book's designer and my right hand or left hand, whichever is your dominant hand. Really, I couldn't have done this project without any of these three people, but John was there with me really every step of the way. And John is the founder of Gagne Contemporary, a gallery focused on emerging and mid-career artists in New York City and Toronto, Canada. He is an art advisor to collectors and often leads clients to artist studios and gallery districts. As an independent curator, John has selected and exhibited artists in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Toronto. He also consults with a number of nonprofits, notably Arts Gowanus and Arts in Bushwick, helping organizations launch and stage arts events. So with that, I have to drop a link on how, if I can find that. Uh-oh. Let's see if this works. So we have this amazing book that there, I think, are only about 30 editions left. So if you want yours, order it now. You can get it right on my website. You can copy and paste that into a browser. And I think I'm going to hand it over to John, who is going
Right.
to introduce the project and kick us off with Robert.
Right, and I'll be very crisp and very to the point because we want to get to the work and we want to get to Robert and Amy. But I can tell you that I was brought in fairly early with this project, and I was immediately interested in both artists and their practices and how this would come together. I'd worked a little bit with Robert in the past. I'd been present for some of those, powerful spoken word poetry sessions. And at the same time, I had been a little bit exposed. I'm more exposed now to the work of Zora Neale Hurston, the Harlem Renaissance, Langston Hughes, and a little bit how that connected to Robert. It was along the way I learned a little bit about, in fact, Robert from Belglade, Florida. In fact, Zora was rumored to have worked there for a while and stayed there for a while. This great folklorist and this great anthropologist. So it was like, from the one hand, coming from the poet side of the room, tremendous momentum coming into the project. And with Amy Williams, someone who's been very kind to me over the years, but whose work that I admire very much, out of the blue, a couple of years ago, I started seeing some of her work around redaction and erasure poetry, particularly with, A Farewell to Arms, this Hemingway text. And how a piece of art will go right through you. I found that work going right through me. I loved the fact that there was a page of text that had been erased and redacted. I loved that she was painting around it and drawing around it to create this third thing that still had kind of the themes and the words and the language and cadence of Hemingway, but it's not Hemingway anymore. It's something new. So when these two, started to work together, I was extremely excited, very excited to see what would happen. So many of you now know what that work looks like. I think it's extraordinary. And then I was able to help, bring the book to life a little bit and support the project. So without further ado, I have some very pointed questions for all three artists, actually. But I think without further ado, we should get to Robert and the reading, if that's okay, Amy. Amy, I
Have
think
to unmute. It's the phrase of 2020 and 2021. You're muted. Yes, I am debating whether I want to show you the visuals or just, let's see, Robert.
half and half.
Half and half. Yes, I want to see Robert because he's such an expressive reader. So let's see that, and I can always show you the images afterwards.
Hi, everybody. I'm just so grateful for this project to come to life. I appreciate everyone that's in my virtual company. It's such an amazing project. It's such an amazing collaboration. Thank you, Amy, for being one of my biggest supporters. Thank you, John. Thank you, Joanne, for being a part of this project. It means so much to me. So I selected 7 pieces from the book that I would like to share with you. The first one is called Citrus Grove. Citrus Grove. I put education to good use. Everything we do comes from dust tracks. Jump, son. Citrus Grove. Put education to good use. Everything we do comes from dust tracks. Jump, son. Preaching. Found Zion in Florida, a toehold in dust. Began pastoring in a citrus grove. Preaching. In Florida, a toehold in dust. Began pastoring in a citrus grove. Drummond. Old Pap tells tales of pirates, a buried treasure of rattlesnakes dug out by hand, a long bow of lawless men, skulls crossed, bones of yesterday, Occupation. Creation is among the people, vast number of songs handed down from England, but this is lavish stuff created in black and white, rusty material of sea folk. I'll read that one again, I like that. Occupation. Creation is among the people, vast number of song handed down from England, but this is lavish stuff created in black and white, lusty material of sea folk. Migration. Migration was critical. Family remains country. Children moved as one testifies. Fertilized together, sell cotton. I'll read that one again. I love it. Migration. Migration was critical. Family remains country. Children moved as one testifies. Fertilized together, sell cotton. Sorry. I'll read my favorite one in the book and my last one. Thank you so much for listening to me. Railroad. Boom. I'll say that again. Boom. Further south was building Atlantic coast, line down East Peninsula, work pay back bending cotton. Railroad. Boom. I'll say that again. Boom. Further south was building Atlantic coast, line down East Peninsula, work pay back bending cotton. Thank you for listening to me.
Nice. Thank you, Robert. You know, it's so fascinating because that is the first time I have heard those aloud. And I have spent so much time with all of these poems, but that brings a whole new experience to them.
I agree.
I think, yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to just share the visuals with you all now.
Very nice,
and
Amy.
hopefully you can see that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yes.
I know, so good.
Yeah. And it was just, you know, the imagery came so quickly for some of them.
Well, I'm going to ask you about some of that.
Yeah. Okay. I won't share all my secrets.
No, it's okay. We're gonna get into your secrets, but
yeah,
because it's still, you know, makers make, right? There's still a kind of a black box to the whole thing that, unless you're doing it, it's like dancing. Unless you're dancing, you don't get it. You don't get the dance, right? So it's like, so getting to your work, both of you getting to your work is an interesting process, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think I was surprised at the speed at which Robert worked because we met, you know, one or two times and we really decided on what we wanted the project to be. And then before I knew it, he was bringing me poems to start working with. And this one, Railroad, is the first one that just, it really came together magically, and boom, is what grabbed my attention immediately. So those are the ones that Robert read tonight. So now I guess John will lead a conversation with Robert and me and with Joanne.
Yeah.
And Susan will get us all up on the screen.
So
I forgot to introduce the illustrious Susan Greenstein, who's running our tech tonight. Susan is an artist at the 440 Gallery. And I just thank you for your help and support tonight.
So I wanted to actually start with Robert, because I'm thinking that in terms of how you work together, you know, the words were your charge. And I actually saw some of the pages, Amy sent a photograph at one point of just this bare language on a blank page. And of course, the first creative act was yours. So Robert, my question is simply, What was it like to work with that text, to work with these books, Go Gator, Muddy the Water, these are critical, substantial texts. How was that for you emotionally? Was it thrilling? Was it terrifying? What was that like?
Well, thank you for that question, John. I went to graduate school at City College and I took a class called Prosody. And in that class, the eminent professor, Michelle Valadares, taught us about found poems and erasure poetry and not taking away from the original text, but to use the energy. See, I know my tradition. I'm from the Everglades of Florida, like you said in the introduction. Zora spent time. So I've always communed with Zora Neale Hurston. I've always communed with James Weldon Johnson. I've always communed with Augusta Savage. I know the literary and the artistic tradition from Florida, that Florida migration to New York to seek the artistic possibility. And those are the artists that I commune with from the Florida tradition. So to know dust tracks on the road and their eyes are watching God, all of the energy of Zora, to be the belle of the Harlem Renaissance, to be one of the few women in Harlem that has 2 books on the bookshelf during her time, and to be a friend of Langston Hughes is very, very important. My mother read Langston Hughes to me. She read Zora Neale Hurston to me as a child. And so I know their energy, I know their background, I know their biography, I know the rigidity of growing up in Florida and wanting to be an artist, and all of the possibilities are not available to you. So you have to seek the energy within you. So it was a spiritual, emotional, metaphysical journey that I took with Zora, because Zora is ever evolving. Although she died in obscurity, she is ever evolving.
Right. And then of course those pages, you brought those to Amy. So Amy, I'm going to ask you now, because I mentioned about the Hemingway work with Farewell to Arms, which to me, every piece became more and more accomplished. But did this sort of destabilize or invigorate in a way to have, words that were chosen by Robert from a text and then, you're on kind of thing? What was that like for you?
That's a great question. Well, it definitely changed my relationship to the page, because I was working on actual book pages, and this time I have a 9x12 piece of paper that Robert designed with his own handwriting. And whereas before, I was making these kind of decisions about which words or phrases that expressed me, and also would create a rhythm on the page. So it was an interesting exercise to not be in control of that. And it took me, those of you who know me, I like things done the way I like things done. But it didn't derail me at all. It brought on a whole new challenge, and I had to kind of expand my mind, and how would I frame these words, and how would I, were they all one thing on a page, or were they kind of individual phrases? It's a party outside.
There should be a party. And then Joanne, and I know I've said it many times, that the essay is actually striking in terms of what it illuminates. It lights up a bunch of things, and it certainly did for me. I mean, you brought up this notion of call and response, part of a tradition in an African American community with music, with language. You brought up a few interesting points too around who's the collage artist and who's the poet now. They seem to be trading practices. Can you talk about what that was like? I mean, you had to discover that for yourself, I imagine, before you could articulate that.
You're still.
You always have to unmute.
Unmute.
Well, thank you for asking me that. And it was just delightful for me to be part of this project. And now seeing it kind of reach this other level. So Robert, that was really fabulous listening to you read the poems. And I think that what really struck me and strikes me still is the vibration,
Yeah.
and really being in tune to the curiosity of these two artists and their willingness to just be open and see. And I think that that is the most exciting place to live. So, you know, we have this work, but it's really, as Robert is alluding to, it's really a way of living and being able to be open to different vibrations. So even without hearing Robert read the text, which was really so exciting, I could understand that the vibration was built into the work. And so there's a way of asking someone who has the book object to kind of live in that space and to be charmed by it. And I think that this is where we want to live as artists. So that was what I was trying to articulate, was what I could feel from each of them in terms of their intention.
Right. I found it interesting. I thought, you know, you identified some of the language that comes out, and one of the words you used was fluidity. That we're talking about migration, we're talking about travel, we're talking about, you know, and I felt that was an interesting aspect to it. But I want to say, because you mentioned it now, it was so nice, Robert, to hear you read, because like all of us, I imagine, I've been reading these poems, and you know, you kind of have your own voice and your own sort of scenario, but there was real joy I felt when you were doing this just now. I also thought, I love the fact you were reading him 2 times and 3 times. I thought that takes, you know, that takes some courage to do that. But anyway, it was an altogether new experience to hear it read by you. So very, very interesting. So let's talk about the book. So Amy, we had like 100 books, you know, produced. They're signed by both artists, right? The essay is in there. There we go. And so how many are left now? Did you say there were like 30 or something?
Yes, just about 30.
30 books.
Mm-hmm. There's a limited edition of 100 in the first run. So
right.
If demand, you know, requires, we
Right.
may do another run. But for now, we want to keep it special and limited.
And of course, you have some of that original artwork behind you now.
Yes.
That's what we're looking at.
Yep.
And that's also available, the original work.
It is. It is. It's all available on my website.
Right.
amywilliamstudio.com.
Very nice. And so what's the plan next then, in terms of in terms of getting the work out there?
Oh. Oh, John, you asked the hard questions. Well, I think, you know, we need to do a few more of these readings, because I think this is an amazing platform, and I think we can
Right.
reach a lot of people this way. I hope that now restrictions are lifting, we will be able to have some in-person events, and I would love to put together an exhibition in an art space,
Nice.
traditional or non-traditional. So I think now we can kind of start really moving forward in that way.
Can I just make one last question, comment? And this came up before we were talking a couple of months ago. One of the things that struck me when I was going through the work was that, you know, Zora wrote what she wrote. I mean, a lot of that, it's almost 100 years ago. Like we're coming up on 90 some years. And I think in your essay, Joanne, you mentioned the fact that, you know what, a collaboration like this actually arms us. First of all, it opens up history, but it arms us for the future to some degree. And I think that's a hopeful thing. And I did feel hope from that. But at the same time, you go, my God, you know, it's hundreds of years longer, obviously, for many nations and many people, but so much struggle. And here we still are. But also here we are again. And here's a body of work that's meant to kind of push forward. So I'm interested, you know, with the three of you, how you feel. I have to imagine you're gratified by how it turned out, but you know, what are you surprised with where you are with this journey? In other words, were you surprised by the work? And are you feeling that hope that does come from the book, but there's also a sense, again, of, well-trodden ground. We've been here and around here before. You might be on mute, sorry.
Should I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joanne.
I feel really, really hopeful right now. Maybe it was the reading.
Yeah.
But I feel really hopeful because I think that one of the things that we're coming to understand is that we're presented with probably 4 or 5 times every day when we can fall in love, that we can make relationships in ways that we usually don't.
Yeah.
That the boundaries between us are in our minds, and that we need to find other ways to connect. And so one of the things that I love so much about a collaboration like this, and that I believe in really, really strongly, is that we can create structures that then allow us to soar. So the structure within the book is extremely specific, that the words are presented in a very specific way, and the images, the colors have a very particular feeling to them, not uniformity, but energy. And that structure that carries from page to page, and that is so charming, is actually a platform.
Yeah.
And I think that having Robert then read those poems and be able to play, to really do that with his voice and it obviously enjoy it. I mean, we can all feel it. I think really that's where we have learned that that's where we want to live.
It might be interesting, and I wanted to hear from Amy and Robert too, but it might be interesting just to record, Robert. I know, Robert, you probably hear this all the time, but to record the reading, Amy, and have that available as well might be an interesting idea.
I think that that's a great idea. I just wanted to say thank you, Joanne. I haven't had a chance to just really thank you. I cried at that introduction you did. I spoke with Amy. It was just so well written, and it went right through me. But I just wanted to say to the audience that about 4 years ago, the New York Times recorded a story in my neighborhood on the southern shores of Lake Okeechobee, where this 15 feet alligator was living in the bottom of Lake Okeechobee. And no one knew that it existed until it came up at night and was eating animals around. I was like, oh my goodness, that's my house, that's my church, that's the street. I know that area. And this 15-foot mastodon was there. No one knew this prehistoric animal existed, but that's the basis of Go Gator and Muddy the Water. An alligator was living in the bottom of the lake. And so I felt like there was a reason that I connected with this story. And I've always had a connection with Zora, but this was really a moment for me to really, Amy and I have been friends a long time. And I want to just give a shout out to Amy. Amy, beyond the collaborative process that we went through, Amy is a wonderful person. She is a wonderful support system to me. She's done a lot, and I just really appreciate her friendship. We are friends too. And so it's an honor to be in her presence. She has her own vision and her own work that she's doing, and I appreciate that too. But I just wanted to say that I am just so honored to be a part of this collaboration.
Amy, yeah.
Well, it's just a big old love fest. I don't even remember your question.
Well, I'm sorry. It was a long-winded question. It was coming out the other end of this work.
Yes.
How do you feel about it? Are you hopeful about the work? Are you hopeful about the time that the work has appeared in?
Okay, well, I'm super hopeful about the work. Yes, and I mean, this book came out more beautiful than I envisioned. And to have it in my hot little hands
Right.
is just a dream come true, because it's a manifestation of this dream.
Yep.
It's interesting because, Robert reached out to me, I think December 2019, roughly, and just called me up out of the blue. We hadn't really seen each other in a while, and he just said, I want to do collaboration with you. And I was like, oh, okay, what might that look like? Let's talk. And he came over and he saw what I was doing with the Hemingway project, and that really clicked for him.
Yeah.
And we thought about, what text we might want to use. And I really felt very strongly that I wanted Robert to select the text that we worked with, because he was the one that would be contributing the language to the project. And, this was a time for me personally in my life where I was starting to think a lot about race and my relationships with people that look differently than me.
Yep.
And I knew that I wasn't in a place where I was really comfortable to actually present that, but I wanted to work with someone that had experienced these things that I was sort of just starting to think about.
Yep.
And so he was a great vehicle and catalyst for that kind of thinking and language, and just being able to spend time with him really started to open me up in a new way. And then the pandemic hit, right? And things sort of stalled out, and I had this pile of poems that I hadn't worked on yet, and I was struggling to think about them. And then George Floyd was murdered, and all of a sudden, it just seemed like everything that I had inside of me poured out onto these pages. Mm-hmm. And it really helped me process that particular moment in history. Mm-hmm. And just to really deepen my exploration of what it is to be anti-racist, and how to create that type of practice in my life and my work environment and in my home and my family. And what does that mean? And what does that feel like? And it's just been life-changing. This has been really a life-changing project for me.
Great. So
thank you, Robert, for initiating this.
Thank you. I just wanted to say one thing, John, that I've never said to anybody, but I have received attacks from people about me working with Amy about this project, and I had to process it in a way. I've never said this, but certain people in the literary community has asked me, why am I, using Zora Neale Hurston with Amy, specifically Amy, because of who she is, her color. And I felt, first of all, I can do whatever I want to do, but secondly, the idea was that collaboration is collaboration. Collaboration, most writers, they sit alone, they write alone, they live a lonely life. But this was a way of someone that I have a great relationship with. There's never been any issue of race or any issue with her. And so they were like, why are you using your Black voice on a platform like that? And I really don't know how to answer that question, but I just want to say that I think that Amy and I did justice to Zora Neale Hurston, because Zora Neale Hurston was a searcher. She was a seeker. She was a visionary. She came to New York. She was accepted into Barnard College. She majored in anthropology. She studied under the great anthropologist Frank Boas, and she went to the outside, the outer hinterlands of the country, and she wanted to discover African American vernacular. She wanted to discover folklore. She wanted to discover old sayings. She wanted to discover. So this is a collaboration. So she wasn't just she was a race woman, but she was a collaborator too.
Right.
And she collaborated with many different people. And
Right.
so I think in the spirit of Zora Neale Hurston, I think we did a good job with Zora Neale Hurston.
I think
in
you
this
did a
project.
great job. And I know the book is dedicated to her work, but more importantly, what you're saying here, you guys did an amazing job. So kudos. And just respectful of time, Amy, I wonder if we should get to Susan and see if there's any questions that have kind of lined up at all. Does that make sense?
Perfect timing.
Okay.
Okay. So not a question, but an important comment. Roger Smith says, it's great you read them repeatedly. Readers will read them over and over while taking in the images. Indeed, each word does vibrate on the page and in the voice. There was another one before. Oh, here's a few. And again, Roger Smith said, Robert, great stuff. It's easy to imagine you looking at Hurston's text like an X-ray. The bones visible at a glance, tremendous.
Yeah, yeah.
And Joy Rosenthal, she asks, how did you choose the words from the poems?
Mm.
Are they all taken from Zora Neale Hurston's words?
Yes, they're all taken from Zora Neale Hurston's from the book, Go Gator. And I read the book. I've read the book extensively over the years, back and forth. So I went back through it like the 5th time, and I created it. I let Zora help me lead the way.
Great. And Trisha Towns writes, beautiful, evocative artwork, Amy. You really made a wonderful space for the reader to perform with you and Robert. Kate Harvey writes, to experience this work audibly, visually, and literaturely, not literally, will elevate it and its makers. Go on, Robert and Amy. Shouts to Joanne, Susan, Ellen, and John. Let's see if there are any. There are some wonderful comments here, but I'm just looking to see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions as of yet. And I invite anyone who does have a question to write it in the text.
Or you could unmute yourself.
Or you can unmute yourself.
Oh, Marty wants to know, how did we meet? Well, this is a lovely story, actually. So I met Robert at the 440 Gallery when he did a reading for us. And I don't recall if it was One Breath Rising that brought him to us, or if it was Golda Solomon who first introduced us. It may have been Golda. And he read Being the Tree, Close to the Tree, Close to the Tree. And oh my God, that's when I fell in love with Robert and his work, because I had never experienced performance poetry in that way. And I still hear it. It stuck. It really stayed inside of me. That poem became me. And after that, I was just hooked. And so anytime there was an opportunity to have Robert come back and read, I just said yes.
I think I've read it there several times with Golda, and also one of my favorite friends that's also in the universe now, Darrell Allardyce. Also, I did a reading with him there too. So shouts out to Darrell Allardyce, because he's truly an energy that I commune with. Yeah, he was truly a friend. He was a friend of the 440 Gallery too.
Oh yeah. We have another question from Roger Smith, and the question is for Robert. Do the poems seem in any way anthropological to you? Is that part of the vibration you were going for?
Yes, they were. Zora came to Belgrade, and some people say, as far as folklore, that's where she discovered the dust track roads, because many of the roads in Belgrade are full of muck. They're dusty, and it's a part of the migrant tradition. So to really talk about the dust, and my mom's backyard is full of orange trees and citrus and tangerines and all those kinds of things. So those are the kind. It's a very, very textual feeling that I get too, an environmental, because I love nature and Zora loved nature. And so those kinds of things, and the anthropological side of her, and just the discovery as an anthropologist really intrigued me with her legacy.
I also want to add that, like Zora, we structured our book with work about race, Florida, and folklore. And those were the three things that I asked Robert to think about when he was making his erasure poems for us.
We have another question from Joy Rosenthal. She said, is Zora lifted up in Belglade? Robert, did you learn about her in school, or was your mom unusual to read her work to you?
It was a combination. I actually knew about Zora through my mother, because my mother was a teacher, for 35 years in the Palm Beach County school system, but also because there was a little museum in Belglade called the Zora Neale Hurston Museum that this one of the neighbors decided to erect in the museum, and she hired me as her first archivist. I was in high school, but I would collect little material about Zora, and the building that we were housed in, supposedly Zora lived in that building. So it was a lot of energy around me about Zora growing up in high school in Belglade, Florida. So yes, it was a combination of my mom and also the environment.
I would like to ask a question. I'm wondering, this seems like such a successful collaboration, so inspiring. And I'm wondering, what's next? I'm wondering if the two of you are thinking of another collaboration.
We keep talking about it. Actually, Robert has a new book coming out, and he asked me to think about doing the cover art for that, which I'm considering, but I'm also considering some other artists that have work that fall into that lane. But I feel like I just want to enjoy the moment and not get ahead of ourselves, right? We worked for a long time. It's like, I feel like I gave birth to a child, and
Let the child grow.
we have our baby.
Yeah.
And I just want to sit with that before we move on to the next thing.
Here, same thing for me. I do have a few manuscripts out in the universe, but I'm just loving this moment because this is the first of its kind. My first book, Close to the Tree, 2012, I published that when I was in New York, maybe like 3 or 4 years. And then I was approached by Poets Wear Prada with the publisher Roxanne Hoffman to publish my chapbook, which is Flight. That was my graduate thesis. And so this is a different type of text. A lot of poets don't get this opportunity to dialogue with a visual artist. So for now, this is my joy. This is, all my friends, my family, people in Belglade are excited about this. And if you notice some of the contributions in the back, I dedicated this book to the city of Belglade in the back of my book, to my mom, to people that really mean stuff to me. But I also dedicated this book to the city of Belglade.
Anything else? Any burning questions, burning desires?
Amy,
You can
this is
see
Ellen.
yes. Hi, Ellen.
Where can people now purchase the book?
Yes.
Very important.
That's an excellent
Tell
question,
people
Ellen.
where to
Thank
get the
you.
book.
So, good. Thank you, Chris. Chris West just purchased a copy. You can go directly to my website,
Okay.
amywilliamstudio.com. There is a link in the chat. You hopefully can click on it and it will take you there. You can also see all of the artwork. There are several pieces still available, and all proceeds directly benefit Robert and myself. So keep that in mind. You're supporting local artists, and Lord knows we need it. Yeah.
And so how are we on the agenda, Amy?
Hey, we're perfect timing. I have Q&A till 7:55. Robert, I will say Robert, and he can tell us a little bit about it, has another reading at 8 o'clock. So
I
he
overbooked
has to.
myself, John. I'm sorry, but I just want to say I try not to do that. My mom always gonna be, I told you not to overbook yourself, but I overbooked myself this one time. You know, all my friends know. But John, I want to say thank you. I always remember the reading we did in Gowanus. That was an amazing reading. Yeah. So thank you, Joanne, for your wonderful, wonderful introduction. I mean, I much love for that. It was just like you went straight through the energy and you knew exactly what to focus on. You are a gifted writer. So thank you. Thank you, Amy, for everything. And I will be talking to you soon. And thank you to all the people that came out and supported my work. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Let me unmute.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your support. Thank you for buying the books. Thank you for buying the art. Thank you for being you. Thank you to my collaborators, John, Joanne, Robert.
For sure.
It's just been a joy and a privilege to really work with all of you and to get to know you
John.
on a deeper level.
We miss you,
Say
John
again?
Gagne. We miss John Gagne.
Oh my God.
You were sounding very Canadian there for a while.
I'm sure. I think about New York. I think about you guys every day. So that's a whole other Zoom call. That's a whole other meeting.
We still think about you too.
Oh,
So
thank you.
great.
I just wanted to say one last thing.
Please.
You know, collaboration is something I always love. I teach and I try to collaborate as much as I can with other teachers, but a true collaboration is where each part is so interdependent with the other part. And this is such a great collaboration. It really is truly the definition of that.
I agree.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so off to cocktails now.
Off the cocktails.
Yes,
Some of us
it's
have
Friday
already
night,
started.
everybody. Yes, you got yours there. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, Kim.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Great job,
so nice
host.
to see all these faces. I want to see people, so
Oh, we can
just
go
take
back
the
to
spotlight off. Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, there's Susan. Hi, Susan Swan.
Hi,
I haven't
Tricia.
seen you in over a year.
Hi.
Great to see
And
you.
there's Trisha. Yes.
Right.
Well, thank you.